Welcome to Corrective Consciousness episode 212, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And we have another beautiful show. It's not wonderful, it's beautiful. We are continuing our exploration of the Castlevania series. Last we talked, we got as far as Super Castlevania 4. Is that correct, Lotus?
Why, yes.
So of course, this is where Castlevania is really ramping up. We did an in-depth look at Castlevania 3, which is of course one of the best games in the series, and Castlevania 4 is way up there as well. But there are plenty of other prominent titles in the series to still talk about, and eventually we'll get to some post Castlevania stuff. I'm sure we at least have to mention the one, but I I do have to take a short detour because I forgot a Castlevania-related game on the Famicom that we didn't talk about there, Lotus. Do you know what I'm
Kid
referring to?
Kid Dracula?
I am. I'm talking about, of course, Alucard's starring role was a lot earlier than people give him credit for. There was a game called Kid Dracula, which of course was a parody type game that Konami actually did quite a few parody-style games featuring its characters. Of course, Parodius is the most prominent one, but they also had the YY World games, which were also goofy versions of their characters in those games as well as being celebrations of their various series. Like the YY World had like goofy versions of Simon and Bill Reiser from Contra, of course, as well as other cool characters. There's even Bio Miracle Oopa, which was the baby with the magic rattle in that game, as well. So some cool stuff. But Kid Dracula had you playing as basically like a kid version of Alucard. This was the first time he ever had white hair. I
That's
believe, and
true.
it's kind of cool that they had that carried forward in his design later on because this was the game that started that, which is kind of funny. Because it is a lighthearted, kind of on the easy side game, especially compared to Castlevania, but it definitely has some Castlevania isms to it. Like it definitely has clock tower levels, and you do have a lot of the same powers that Alucard did in Castlevania 3. Like you have the three fireball shot thing that you could do as Dracula and Alucard, and you can also turn into a bat for a limited amount of time, just like in Castlevania 3. So it had its moments, and it's a quite a fun game. It has that lighthearted, like jaunty, like Saturday morning kind of feel to it. Like you're fighting this bad guy named Galamoth or Garamoth, who ends up turning up as a serious villain later on in the series in Castlevania. But it's kind of like a goofy bad guy kind of thing, and we never got the Famicom Color, full version of that game in America until recently. The Castlevania collection actually came out with this game on it, and with a brand new English translation on it. So that this particular generation has been great for that kind of thing. We've gotten Trials of Mana that way. Um, we've gotten so many old games that we never used to have translated into English officially, and never used to really be a thing. I'm just super glad that we have that available to us. We did, however, get the Game Boy version of it, which is kind of framed as a semi-sequel, semi-remake. So I actually have a copy of this. It did come out in the United States, but it talks about as if you've already defeated Garamoth once. So it's kind of framed as a sequel, but if you play it, it's basically just a remake with, some rearranged areas, but it's mainly a remake, that kind of thing.
Well,
So,
that kind of makes me think of Clock Tower on PS1, which is Clock Tower 2 in
yeah.
Japan. But the game opens with like, oh man, after those crazy Scissorman murders from, from before, thank God we're over that. And you're like, what? I guess something happened? Okay.
You know what it kind of reminds me of is like Evil Dead 2 is basically a remake and then like
Yeah, the first 5 minutes
expansion.
of that movie is Evil Dead 1.
Yeah, and it completely retells how it happened. Like it's different than what actually happened in Evil Dead 1. So in fact, the flashback in Army of Darkness is even further different than what they for Evil Dead 1 than they showed in Evil Dead 2. It's like in Evil Dead 2 they like completely ignore that they were at the cabin with 4 people. It was 4 people that went to that cabin, not just the 2 of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like that. But yeah, I wanted to mention that because Alucard in this form, in Kid Dracula form, actually shows up in a couple of the Parodius games as well. So it's worth mentioning, and it's a fun game. Certainly pick it up, or as part of that Castlevania collection, definitely try it because it's a lot of fun. Moving on from Super Castlevania 4, though, we have quite possibly the best classic game in the series that took a lot of inspiration, of course, from Castlevania 3 rather than Super Castlevania 4. Super Castlevania 4 kind of did its own thing, with the multi-whip and all that kind of stuff, the multi-directional whip.
Oh, going
Um,
back to just a single whip? Oh, you are obviously referring to Castlevania 64.
no, I am referring to Dracula X Rondo of Blood,
Yes.
which um, is the game that came out on the PC Engine Super CD. Or the TurboGrafx Super CD if you're in the United States. But the thing is, it only came out in Japan. So for a long time, this was like the elusive like import only game for an obscure system as it was, and like an upgraded form at that. So like very few people in the United States had access to this. You'd hear about it in like magazines like Die Hard Game Fan, like you guys have no idea what you're missing, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's really unfortunate because it's worth the hype. It is quite possibly the best of the linear Castlevania games, for sure, and best of the Castlevania games up until that point. So it is an excellent, 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 excellent game. I can't stress it enough how good that game is, and it's really a shame that it um, it it took so long for mainstream people to be able to play it. We didn't get a chance to play it in the United States in any official capacity until the Wii or the PSP. It came across as a Wii Virtual Console import title, and it also came on the PSP Dracula X Chronicles, along with a remake of it, and as well as a port of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And Castlevania Dracula X I'm not even doing it justice because I'm not even explaining why it's so good. First of all, this was the first time the series really had been done in a like a 90s anime aesthetic. Before that, it had that barbarian aspect that we had talked about, that that classic horror feel of the Universal monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And Kid Dracula had that like chibi anime aesthetic, but this was the first time it had that action anime aesthetic. The main character was a new Belmont named Richter. I believe it was further in the future than it ever had been before. I think it was supposed to take place in 1791, something like that. And all the other ones had been like firmly in medieval times, and so this one had that going for it. It had beautiful, lush um, sprite work and animation that it was really unparalleled at the time. It looked great. It sounded great too. It was on a CD. It was one of the first games of that era to take advantage of a CD format. So it had actual music playing, Red Book audio, rather than MIDI music. And we all know how good Castlevania music sounds in general.
Oh yeah.
So getting the opportunity to play, with actual instruments being featured, and really crisp, clear music, streamed right off of a CD, was just an incredible thing at the time. Owners of the Sega CD in the United States had more of an experience with this, I would say. When that first came out, people were really blown away. It can't be understated how big of a deal like CD media was at the time. Like the
Yeah.
jump from cartridge to CD media was a big deal, and it's really a shame that, first of all, the TurboGrafx was not a big hit in the United States at all, and we only got like the first run of CD games, and we did get some Super CD games, but like barely anybody got that that far in that progression. With the hardware, because you would have really needed to have a niche system to begin with a niche add-on, to that. To play the Super CD-ROM games, you needed a special cartridge, a special Hue cartridge with extra RAM. So, and then you wouldn't need to import this game. So, like, really only like super nerds from back then would have ever played this, and they would have been bragging about it because it was just that good. And a lot like Castlevania 3, it had branching paths, but in a different way. It was actually a more satisfying way. The way that you did it in Castlevania 3 is you got to pick at the end of a level. You got to pick, go up or
Yeah,
go down.
up or
right?
down. Yeah.
In this one, you actually almost every level has a secret exit that leads to a different path.
That's cool.
So a completely different level in the other direction. If you find the secret exit, so it definitely encouraged you to explore the levels to their fullest to see whether you could find where it branched off. So that meant that the game had twice the levels that you thought it did, and twice the bosses and all that. Every place was unique. It wasn't reused or anything like that. Not only that, but you were charged to finding 4 villagers. I think it was. It was like you had to rescue your girlfriend as well as Maria, which I'll get to in a moment, and 2 other villagers. So you had to find people who had been kidnapped by Dracula, and just everything about this game was just so much fun. They also added a thing that was used from now on called the item crashes.
Oh yes.
So before you just had the sub weapons, so and they were very helpful. They helped you in some of the deficiencies that the whip had. First of all, this game was the first time, I think, in the main series that you didn't need to upgrade your whip. Your whip was always at its strongest, which should have always been a thing, really, because they always gave you the upgrades really quickly in the previous ones. Like, they gave it to you if you needed it. So, like, hardly ever was an issue, but in this one, you didn't have to upgrade your whip. Your whip was always at its strongest. But the sub-weapons were all pretty darn good to begin with. Even the knife, which is considered to be the weakest one, you chuck those knives like really super quick. So you could throw a whole bunch of them out there and do some damage. And they're actually a pretty decent weapon in the game. But you can also do what's called an item crash with these sub weapons. If you have enough hearts, you can you pull off the super move, and it's a different super move depending on which sub weapon that you have selected. What's also unique to this game is if you don't have a sub weapon yet, if you haven't picked one up yet, you will do like a flame whip kind of technique, which is kind of like a throwback to the flame whip from Castlevania 2. But I always thought that was kind of cool that you kind of had that like secret weapon crash that you hardly anybody knew that you could do that. And what else? So if you had knives, you threw out like a whole torrent of knives. If you had axes, it had like a ring of axes flew out from the screen.
Well,
The
it's almost like Ghouls and Ghosts if you like supercharge whatever weapon you're holding, except
mhm.
that you pay for it in Castlevania.
Well, they had this really cool one. Well, there was also like for holy water. Holy water in this game was really cool. It actually like you threw it at an angle rather than like straight down, or like you toss it like a ball or
Yeah,
whatever. Like in previous ones, you just kind of like lob it.
it's straight ahead of you and it just drops. Yeah,
Yeah, in this one, it travels like forward on the across in kind of like a flame across the ground.
sure.
The item
Very
crash
good
made
for
it.
finding holes, by the way, like secret
Oh yeah,
pits.
yeah, yeah. But it also the item crash made it rain, which was cool. Rain holy water. But
Nice.
the coolest one was the boomerang cross. Actually, like crucifies your low-level mook enemies on screen.
Jeez.
Yeah, they kind of in later versions they kind of in some of the versions of this game they kind of toned that down, but it was really cool back in the day. It also had animated cutscenes, like really
Yes.
cool looking stuff. So, let me see what else did it do. Oh, so I mentioned that you have to rescue people in it. Um, if you have the key as your key takes actually the slot of your sub weapon to kind of actually make it more challenging for you because then you won't have a sub weapon. You just have that key there. And when you try to use it, you just kind of like shink with the key and it doesn't hurt. It's really funny. But if you try to do a item crash with the key, Richter just gets a question mark bubble. He's like,
Yeah, like
what?
what? What do you want me to do? Yeah.
Like nothing happens. But once you rescue Maria, Maria is a little girl that has like Chinese zodiac powers. She has like a bunch of different like animal friends that help her that are representative of the zodiac. So she has like a double jump, so she's kind of like easy mode almost. Like you could beat it with either Richter or her after that, and you can go back to the other levels with her later on. This game also had a save feature and everything. It was like really great. Yeah, she attacked with doves initially, but she can get like dragon powers and phoenix powers and all this other stuff. She had a completely different sub weapon set. So really cool. They took that multiple character thing from Castlevania 3 and also did that in this one as well. Um, so it was just an amazing game overall. I think this was the first time in the series where it once you defeat a boss, it'll get one last like fuck you shot in there
Oh,
before it
sure.
dies.
Yeah.
That's since become a hallmark in action games in general. There have been a lot of like challenging 2D action games, mainly even the new Bloodstained 8-bit style games do this. Well, once you put in your final hit and you kill the bad guy, they have one little shot that they can still kill you before they wither away and die. And it's every single one's unique. It's really neat, really really cool. So it's really a shame that most people didn't get a chance to play this. I imported a Turbo Duo back in college in order to play this game specifically. And now we have lots of options, thankfully. You can play it on the Wii if you still had that from when you downloaded it back in the day. Your Wii U, obviously, but that stuff is the Wii U version. I think is still up, so you can purchase that. You can buy it on PS4 as part of the Dracula X collection. Which is really great. And you can even purchase it on PSN for your Vita or PSP still, as part of that other Dracula X collection. There are two different ones. The PS4 one's the way to go though. But it's an excellent, amazing game, and I can't overstate it enough. You can also play it on the PC Engine Mini or TurboGrafx Mini. It's included on that. So lots of ways to play that game these days. So I'm certainly happy about that, and it's worth any bit of money that you spend on it. It's worth it because it's at the pinnacle of this type of game. And about a little while after that, They made a game called Castlevania Dracula X or Double X. Um, so they kind of made a sequel remake for the Super Nintendo. So this one we did get in America, in the United States, and when this was coming out, the people in the know that really had heard about this TurboGrafx one were really excited because like they were like, we're finally going to get this game, right? We're getting a version of it. So it may not have like the CD audio, but at least we could play it on the Super Nintendo. Turns out what they did was they did a sequel remake, which was stripped down in almost every way. There were only a couple extra levels. There wasn't a secret exit in every single level. I think there was only two. You can't play as Maria, and I think you can only rescue two people in that game. And the levels are completely different and not as good. So you can look at it as a completely different game, which I tend to, because a lot of people say, yeah, it's not as good as the other one. Well, that's true, but it is a completely unique game. Almost all the levels are completely different than the TurboGrafx version. So I do recommend it in that respect. It also really doesn't have any ports or anything, as far as I remember. I don't think they ever really put it on anything else. So that's kind of why they made it Double X in Japan. It's actually kind of really confusing in the United States because they just call it Dracula X. But in Japan, it's like called Double X, so it's like it's easier to tell. It was also called, I think this is the one that's called Vampire's Kiss in the United. Yeah, it's called Vampire's Kiss. You know that hit Nicolas Cage movie.
Obviously, all you got to do is know your ABCs.
I showed my fiance that movie. And
that's all you have to do.
she she got a charge out of it, but yeah. Oh yeah, the one on PS4 is called Castlevania Requiem. I'm sorry, that comes with both the original Dracula X from the TurboGrafx and Symphony of the Night. So I like this game a lot. It has really good music, but it's kind of disappointing if you go to it from the TurboGrafx one, which is like the pinnacle. It's just that good. Around that same time, we also had the Genesis Castlevania game, which was its own unique game called Castlevania Bloodlines. This is an excellent game as well. In fact, I would say that the 16-bit era is just fantastic. It's full of just great, really great versions of Castlevania. It's just so good. So, Bloodlines is like that underrated game. It's like the really, really good game in the series that hardly anybody had played because it was a game that was released in the late in the lifespan of the Genesis. It was one of those games that got like a plastic or a paper cover, a cardboard cover, rather than a clamshell one.
Yeah.
Like most of the games early in the lifespan of that system, and also. It can't be understated that the Genesis and the Mega Drive in Japan was not nearly as popular as it was in the United States. In fact, it was a very much kind of a niche system over there. The TurboGrafx PC Engine and the Super Famicom were much more popular than both of them. Than the Mega Drive. In fact, Sega didn't really get super popular in Japan until the Saturn. In terms of home stuff. So, they had a really limited, print run in Japan. But Konami put out some of their best work on the Genesis. One of my favorite games of all time is Rocket Knight Adventures. That was a Genesis exclusive title. I absolutely love that game.
And you know what? There's also that Batman and Robin game. Was that Konami?
No, Batman and Robin. The Adventures of Batman and Robin was a Blue Sky Software game, actually.
The one where the first level is Two-Face, like on the building, and you're crashing down a bunch of levels.
Yeah, so that's that is Adventures of Batman and Robin by Blue Sky Software. That's a fantastic game
Oh,
too, but it's not
alright.
Konami.
Fair enough.
But the good Konami games on the Genesis are like Hyperstone Heist, which is a good
Yeah.
um,
That's
Ninja
a
Turtles
kind
beat 'em
of
up.
watered down Turtles in Time, but it's cool.
But the really crowning achievements are Rocket Knight Adventures, Castlevania Bloodlines, and Contra Hardcore. Those three
Contra
titles
Hardcore is
just
freaking crazy.
knock it out of the park with all of them. So Castlevania Bloodlines also had multiple characters that you could play as. You could play as the first time that you are a non-Belmont whip user. You are John Harris in that game, or John Morris. I'm sorry, John Morris. So what was cool about this game in particular is they wanted to tie in the Castlevania mythology finally to the Dracula novel by Bram Stoker. So what they did was they made Bloodlines a game that was basically a sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula, but with
That's insane.
all of the elements of Castlevania past. So also this was the game that was furthest in into the present. So this was World War One era is supposed to be when it happens, and you have Dracula's niece is starting World War One is part of part of the story of Bloodlines, which is awesome. So you have stuff like tanks and munitions going on in this game as well. So it's not just you're fighting mythology like you were before, or monsters. It's all that stuff, but plus you have technology put into it, modern technology. So it was a really neat game in that aspect. The graphics are great. The music is some of the best in the entire series, and with a series that has music at its forefront, like the music
And with the
in
Genesis sound card,
it was just mwah, chef's kiss. Like, if I had to pick the best music in the series, it would be Castlevania 3, but it would be Bloodlines right underneath it. Like, it's that good. And then you have Dracula X and Symphony of the Night right below that. But they're all it's all so good. Like, how can you even pick? Most of the time. So, Bloodlines had John Morris, who's supposed to be the son of one of the one of the people that killed Dracula in the first
so
in the book.
John Harker.
Uh, no, Jonathan Harker, but there's also John Morris, the guy from Texas. So he's supposed to be an American.
Oh wow, I forgot about that.
Also, his ancestors are supposed to be the Belmonts, so that's how he has the whip. And you could also play as his friend Eric Lacard, who has like a spear that he pole vaults with.
What's his last name?
Lacard.
So he's E. Lacard.
Yes. Well, I don't get that.
That sounds like Alucard, but it's E. Lacard.
Oh,
Like, is he like serious question? Is he like secretly like a vampire or turning or something?
No, they make reference to him later on in the series. In particular, Portrait of Ruin
Okay.
is a sequel to Bloodlines in particular. So they go further with the mythology about the Morrises and the Lacards. But he's not Alucard, but that was a good that
He's
was a
just
good catch.
Dracula.
Yeah, he's just a standalone character, but
All
you
right.
could pick him from the beginning, which is cool. You don't have to unlock him, which is neat. And it's a very challenging game, but it's a lot of fun, and it has like a globe-trotting kind of story, which
Yeah,
is a lot
wildly
different.
different aesthetics in each level.
Yeah, so like at most previous games, you just basically had the surrounding countryside and then going up to
Yeah, you go
different
through the
levels of the
woods, you go
castle.
through the underwater aqueduct stuff, you go into the castle.
Well, this game has you going to different countries in Europe because you're supposed to be
Yeah.
preventing World War One. So you're in Athens at one point. You're in Italy at one point. You're on the Leaning Tower of Pisa at one point. Like you go all Roman aqueducts is one part of the. You go to Germany at one point where they're making munitions. It's It's a really, really, really cool game. Definitely check it out sometime. And I think I'm going to draw the line there, Lotus, because we have. I want to do the next game justice, which is our first 32-bit one, and one of the most
Yeah, it's a
important
big
games in
one.
the
It's
series.
one of the most iconic games of all time.
Yeah, and it's on most people's 100 best games of all time, if not like the top 25 or 50s for some people, you know. So,
Yeah.
it is an iconic game that changed, it basically popularized a genre of games. So, it certainly, we wouldn't have the indie space of video games in the same way without it, for sure. But so we'll get on with that later. But I really wanted to give this 16-bit era its due because there's some really good shit there, and they're all really really a lot of fun. So definitely check them out. So we should move on to fan stuff then.
Why, sure. So, School Filmer has a couple of comments. One, looks like I'll be getting a vacation after all this year. I'll
Oh,
be
good for
heading
you.
into. Yeah, I'll be heading into Trondheim next Thursday. I hope I pronounced that right. And I'm looking forward to it because I've never been there yet. And by the time this gets read, I'm probably on the way there. As for the other thing, it turned out that I'm going to be an uncle to another nephew.
There
So
you go.
congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
While I am excited to go to Trondheim, I am also a little worried because some Norwegians have gone to Spain, even though they shouldn't, and the possibility of them returning with a new wave of corona is there. So much for staying home, huh? Then again, we aren't known for good common sense. I mean, you're like a fucking American is reading this comment. Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
we
worry
have
about
no stake
comparing
in this
yourself too
game.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other comment was, I don't know much about the questions topic, like last week's question, pick your apocalypse. But I go with something like Tokyo Jungle. That way, no humans are around to see their precious little pet
Not until
Pomeranians
the end of the game.
become little feral beasts on the hunt for prey in the ruined streets of Tokyo. It's a good game, though.
Oh yeah.
So Living Corpse has a few comments. One, Alucard is a better love interest than Sypha. Them's potential fighting words, buddy. Then another comment. Anyone who wants a zombie apocalypse are just closet psychos who want to have an excuse to kill someone without feeling
I can
guilty.
agree with that. Yeah.
Because, yeah, hey, it was a zombie. And also, no. Did you know how much the world would stink with that many dead, rotting bodies walking around?
Be
Yeah,
awful.
that would be unbearable. Being vaporized into atoms in seconds is arguably better than being munched on by rotting corpses. Yeah, well, that was my main thing. I don't. If I'm gonna die, I don't want it to be being eaten. Third comment.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Being
yeah.
consumed is not cool.
No. So the third comment, the coin is really OP in Hitman, even after they nerfed. They can't nerf it any further or else it won't be a distraction anymore and defeat the purpose. Yeah, remember last week I said that the coin was just a free pass in those Hitman games? Throw. Ting. What was that? And you're already gone.
Yep.
And then the last comment from Living Corpse, Junji Ito's stories and art style remind me of the old Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books.
Yeah.
I can kind of get that vibe
Yeah, that
from the
black
art
and
style.
white. Yeah, that black
Like,
and white
I mean, you can
style.
tell one apart from the other, but yeah, they are quite fucked up. Like, Scary Stories art. Like, there's new versions of those books released with much more kid-friendly
They're
art.
much tamer now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the old art was, like, legitimately scary.
I stayed away from them when I was a kid. I liked them as an adult, but like when I was a kid, they gave me the heebie-jeebies.
As a kid, I don't really remember reading the stories, but we had the book in
The
the
stories
classroom.
are much less scarier than the than the
Yeah,
actual.
the stories
actual art.
only a couple of the stories are actually creepy, but like yeah, the scariest picture of the entire book for me was for a story that was like pretty tame. It was like, and then he saw a ghost, and the ghost was like, "You need to find the earring that I'm missing, or whatever." But that was like, that picture was horrific. It was like that rotting corpse picture. It was
Sure.
like the worst. And then finally, Gycologist says, honestly, Fallout wouldn't be that bad if I get to live in Vault 13 without the Enclave kicking him down the door. Just us and our intelligent Deathclaw homies. And then, as for what I mentioned about Hellstar Amina, Hellstar Amina was clearly bigger than Earth. It ate Earth, after all. You know, Gycologist, you make a compelling point. Preferred apocalypse scenario? Green apocalypse? Where interesting new life forms retake the Earth and there's forests everywhere? Maybe throw in some Monster Hunter style critters running about? It's like a kaiju calypse, only more reasonable and not induced by monsters that would clearly get crushed under their own weight. Yeah, there are really cool character and creature designs that like couldn't exist, or if they did, they couldn't move.
What would they eat? That's the
Well,
better
that was the
question.
thing. Did you ever see that like Netflix movie, The Cloverfield Paradox?
No.
Because like there's like the big
Wait. Is which of those is it?
the
I saw
third
the
one,
third one, the one
the
that was in
third one.
space.
Yes.
Okay, I did see that one. Okay.
So you know how like there's that giant creature that like dwarfs the spaceship.
Oh yeah.
That thing would starve to death in like a day. Like what the fuck is it eating?
Yeah,
There's
that's like the
nothing.
main argument against like the Loch Ness monster. Is like, what the fuck would it eat? Get out of here. Like,
And it's the only one. Like even if it were able to survive, it'd be dead by now. It's not one of
yeah,
those
I mean,
immortal
it's no
jellyfish
longer the
monsters.
'60s. Come on, get out of here.
Like it's obviously not real, but even if it were, it would no longer be.
Yep.
Okay, so the question is from School Filmer. Have you ever seen or met any celebrities or some famous persons? Personally, I have seen two very Norwegian celebs. One
Hmm.
of them I saw on the cruise ship to Kiel in Germany. He used to have a talk show on TV with someone else. Another one is a local personality who tends to show up in another town wearing his iconic red scarf. It's pretty hard to miss him. And I have one more, although I've never met him. I did receive an original drawing from the comic artist with a greeting to me on it. It's freaking cool. That was one of my favorite Christmas presents that year. Nice. Like, I mean, I haven't really chatted up celebrities. I've interacted, like I've shaken hands with a few, like at like in autograph signings and stuff, but I haven't like just talked it up. The closest I can think of for a brief bit might have been like John St. John, the voice actor for Duke Nukem. I mean, he's voiced a ton of stuff, but like he's still most famous for Duke
You
Nukem.
mean Big the Cat's voice actor?
Sorry, Big the Cat is obviously his most prominent role.
I'm one of the very few people that's lucky enough to have actually met my favorite YouTuber in person, and I get to do a
Well, I do a podcast
podcast
with him
with
every
him
week. Yeah,
twice a week.
yeah. I had the pleasure of meeting that one guy who shows up in
The
Lotus
Lotus
Prince's
Prince?
videos.
Where do
Oh,
I get one of those Alice T-shirts?
I don't know. I don't know. They're gone, man. Like I've looked.
You basically have to put it on like gentle cycle so you could preserve them.
Well, that's the funny thing. Like he's always wearing that shirt. Like no, just when I'm on camera, which means
You
for like
never have to
2
wash it
minutes.
or whatever. Yeah.
Like, well, no, it's not. It's not that. It's just that like I don't wear it nearly as much as it looks.
Yeah. It's just
Like,
only
like
when
I'll
I
wear
pop
it
up.
for like a day at a con, once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But like on camera, it's like, and that's my 2 minutes. Put it back in the drawer.
So who have I met? I met the woman who was a co-star of Men in Black and the star of Dogma. What's her name?
Oh, I don't remember her name, but I know who you mean. She's awesome.
Yeah, she actually came from my hometown, and she took her dad
Oh,
to my cousin's barbershop where she gets her haircut, where he gets his haircut.
nice.
Men in Black. What's her name? I just want to double
Sure,
check. It's
sure.
Linda something or other. Fiorentino. Yeah, there we go. She lives in my neck of the woods.
She was never the same after being deneuralized.
She was Agent L in for a brief moment.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I love just how weird she was. Just like as what was her job, like a mortician or
Mortician,
something.
yeah.
She was just like bizarre. Like when they first met her, it's like, all right.
Let me see. Who else? I met Adam Sessler during the launch of Halo 3.
Ooh,
Let me see here. Got to even be in the same room. I didn't meet him, but I got to be in the same room as Ludacris that night too. That
oh,
was a wild night.
oh.
Um,
Here's a funny thing actually. My great aunt used to collect celebrity autographs. Like this was back in the day where you could send in like a postcard. Excuse me, celebrity, could you please sign this and mail it back to me? And they just would. So she had a lot of autographs that nobody would have any business owning today, like fucking Walt Disney. But one of them, the reason I bring this up is that I think it was for a school project. My mother and I were in New York City. We were in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and we were looking at some exhibits. And my mom noticed, like over down the hallway, Woody Allen was just there looking at something else. And it was super funny because like we never interacted with him, we just saw him. But my mom was like, "Should we ask for his autograph?" And I was like, "We already have his autograph." It's freaking crazy.
I also you were around when I met the next one. I met at PAX East, Suda
One of the
51.
greatest celebrities, yeah, Suda 51.
Yeah,
Freaking wild. I wish I had something from the autograph.
I did, thankfully at the
Yeah,
time.
you got that foam chainsaw from playing the demo of
Yeah,
Lollipop Chainsaw.
so it was one of those deals where like we went through the Lollipop Chainsaw exhibit before that was released, and we thought it was pretty cool. We got they had like a school bus all decked out and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
they
then
really went all out.
walking on the floor, and out of the corner of my eye, I was like, I know this guy from somewhere. And he's just standing there. And I was
he's
like,
just
oh,
hanging
it's
out.
Suda.
Yeah, he's
And I,
just
like,
there. He was
I
just
yelled
there.
it, and he's just like, oh man, he's like, somebody recognized me. Shit.
Yeah, well, not to mention, you asked him when the silver case was coming out, and this was like years
He
before
said, "Give
it
me,
came out.
give,
And he was
give
like,
me
"Oh,
2 to 3 years." But I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And he was, it came out like it.
Yeah, at the time, yeah, like he got the timeline right too. But like just the fact that an American would bring up the silver case, it was, like, oh, they know about this.
He had a translator with him, and he was
Yep.
obviously like super psyched that somebody recognized him. And then a line formed behind us after I started talking to him. So like everybody else started to recognize him too after I pointed him out.
I wish that I had a copy of Michigan Report from Hell.
Yeah, he only had found out recently, right before that it had come out in English in the
Yeah,
PAL
like
territory.
some English interviewer was talking to him about whatever, and they mentioned the fact that it was out in PAL locations, and Suda 51 was like, "No, it's Japan only," and the guy was like, "No, like I have a copy right here." So it was like, "What?"
Yeah,
that's freaking great.
I was just so dumbstruck, because I was just so surprised by it that I got a chance to talk to him, and like I was just like a little giddy and I didn't know what to say because if I had something planned.
Well, yeah, it's not like he was on the guest list. He wasn't there like as a celebrity guest. He was just like among the developers who were there.
Yeah,
so he wasn't like hyped in the pamphlets or anything. He just like maybe you just happened to find him that one time.
And he obviously was like super jazzed because a lot of Japanese developers don't realize like how much of a following that they have in the United States, and I think he was one of them at the time. He just didn't realize that people loved him so much. Like the people that did love him loved him so much. So
well, it's like also like our friend Chris from college. Like he's an enforcer at PAX, and so he's just met Swery.
Yeah.
I'd fucking love to meet Swery. Like, are you kidding me? That'd be amazing.
Let me see. I also got a chance to meet Yuzo Koshiro. He was at Otakon one year.
We got his autograph along with I believe her name the Castlevania composer Michiru Yamane.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't have a Castlevania game for her to sign at the time. It was
you know what? Like that was kind of the weird thing is with MagFest they are there in a celebrity like autograph guest capacity. So I knew who was coming. And I was at a retro game store. Like, I don't even think I had my AVS at the time. I don't even know if I was able to play Nintendo games. But I saw, like, just a cart-only copy of Castlevania 1. I was like, sure, I'll get that.
Yeah.
Like, I want to get it autographed.
Yeah, a lot of people... You know what? I should have given her credit during the review of it. Like, she's one of the few female composers of the era, and she's one of the best. She's like, fantastic.
She's way up there, yeah. She's been doing Castlevania music forever.
And Yuzo Koshiro was there at the same time. I think they had come over on the same plane, and
they were sharing a table. It was like there was another composer who like the name I regrettably forgot because like I didn't own anything that he had composed for. He was a Western composer.
Yeah, I got Yuzo Koshiro to sign my copy of the original Etrian Odyssey, which I was really proud about that. And
didn't you have like Bare Knuckle 2?
I had a full inbox copy of Bare Knuckle 2 for the Mega Drive.
Yeah, I remember you had mentioned he was like he was surprised by that because I had Streets of Rage 2.
like one of those things.
Yeah,
like,
you bothered to get this?
Yeah. So like once again, the Genesis, the Mega Drive in Japan was an underground thing. So even having a foreigner import a copy of something that was niche in Japan is like
and not only that, but the foreigner already had their copy. Like there was no need to import Bare Knuckle 2, which shows that like it was all the more extra effort. Like, why should you import Bare Knuckle 2? Streets of Rage 2 was like a couple bucks, you know?
Yeah.
But you went through the steps.
And Streets of Rage 2 is my favorite video game soundtrack of all time.
It's
So
that is a top contender. Oh, by the way, speaking of Yuzo
I'm just so
Koshiro,
happy to have it signed.
speaking of Yuzo Koshiro, getting his autograph wasn't your only interaction with him.
Yeah, I actually got to talk to him at his panel, which was pretty cool. I got to tell him like I grew up and I had my first synesthetic experience while playing Streets of Rage 2 when I was a kid.
Oh, that's wild.
I'm synesthetic, so like I have visuals accompanying music in my head when I hear it, and you should look it up. I don't want to go into a big thing about it, but yeah, I had my first synesthetic experience while playing Streets of Rage 2, and I told him about it. And I also
Well, you had a funny well, you had a question with an amusing answer as well.
yeah, so like and this has actually gone on Wikipedia pages since then. Like this
Oh,
question
really?
this question is actually like actually tossed around by him. In factoids about him. So I noticed that like on Genesis, a lot of the Genesis games of the time, 16-bit games, he was the only like the reason why we know he composed those games is his copyright is on the bottom of every game he did.
Yeah, like the title screen. It
on the
just
title
also
screen.
says music by Yuzo Koshiro. Like,
And it
should I know who this
see
is?
it.
Yeah.
You never see that. And I asked him, I was like, I think it's super interesting that you were able to get your name on the bottom of it. Like, how were you able to arrange that? And he said, actually, Sega was really cool about it. My mom told me that it was a smart thing to do to keep all the rights to the stuff that you create. And although he was way ahead of the time.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
And Sega was like, yeah, whatever. The thing about
this
Sega
is from
at
an
the
era
time,
where a lot of credits were just like pseudonyms.
well, you also have to remember like what Sega's attitude at the time was that like Sega was primarily an arcade owner,
That's
developer,
true.
and runner. So they all of their major focus was on all the amusements that they were making, and so the home device was kind of their pet project, something off towards the side. So they probably just didn't care that they were like, yeah, go ahead, keep your music. I mean, think
Well,
about you,
you know what that
Suzuki.
makes me think of actually is Bill Gates. Like, can I keep the rights to the software? Yeah, sure. Who gives a shit about software? And like, well,
Can I have the design specs for this mouse thing? Yeah, sure, go
yeah,
ahead. We're not
whatever.
using it. They took it right off from Xerox for free.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just one of those things. He said that his mom told him that was a smart thing to do, and he's still making money off of his soundtracks. I mean,
Yeah.
they're in
I
vinyl
mean, like he
now.
like at that very Magfest, he was like the DJ for like Streets of Rage 2 music. We're still listening to
So
this
cool.
like 1992 or 3 Sega Genesis game that
People
we
were
know
doing the Colossus
his name
War to it
of.
and everything.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Such a cool thing at the time, and I was glad that I was able to be at least a part of it. And he's a really super nice guy too, and very humble. A lot of people also don't notice that his video game. He actually had a company that made Streets of Rage 2 and 3. His company like
Huh.
programmed them. He didn't just make the music.
Nice.
He made like his company Ancient made Legend of Oasis as well. And he ran it with his family, his sister and his mother. He ran that company with his family basically.
That's awesome.
So
But one little quirk that I thought was amusing, by the way, was that like I don't know about for you, but probably the same. But for me, when he signed his autograph, it was not in Japanese characters. He wrote like YUZO like in English characters.
what a mensch. He went the extra mile.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I think I met a couple of the Platinum guys. I think I didn't meet Shinji
Ooh.
Mikami, but I met a couple of the guys from Mad World at the
Oh, very
time.
nice.
I got a cover signed by them. And I think I may have met the Mega Man guy. I think I might have met him.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. Yeah, for as far as like autographs and brief little meetings are concerned, aside from John St. John, yeah, I've met the Mega Man guy, Keiji Inafune.
Yeah,
Yep. So
Kenji
yeah, his
Inafune.
autograph. I mean, like these people just speak Japanese, so I wasn't talking to them. I met Alexander Brandon. He's the guy who did the music for Deus Ex and Dust Elysian Tale. Grant Kirkhope, the guy who did a lot of music for Rare, like Donkey Kong Country. No, Donkey Kong 64, GoldenEye, that kind of stuff. I met and got the autograph of Hideo Kojima twice because he appeared in New York City twice. Once I actually forgot what it was for, but the first time was for when Peace Walker had just come out on PSP. So it's kind of funny because he autographed my PS2 Metal Gear Solid Essentials collection, and the second time I met him, he autographed the Metal Gear Solid HD collection on PS3. But
Cool.
now there's the Legacy collection, so it keeps going. I keep being one version behind.
Oh, I met
Uh,
Tommy Tallarico as well. I forgot to say that.
ooh,
The guy
very
who did
nice.
the music for a lot of Virgin
A ton of
Interactive and
stuff.
Shiny. Earthworm Jim, and he also is like the cousin of Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. So
Oh,
he did the music for Guitar Hero Aerosmith and all that stuff. So
yeah. And one other person I could think of just off the top of my head would be like this was early, well, like in my early days of looking for autographs and stuff, but went back when I went to Otakon, I actually met Crispin Freeman, who I was super hyped about. He's one of my
he's
favorite voice
cool.
actors.
Yeah.
For context, he voices Alucard in the anime Hellsing. He's the main character of that, but he's done a ton of stuff, including, I didn't realize this at first, but his first anime voice acting role was Zelgadis in Slayers, which was my first ever anime series. So what a coincidence. But he's voiced a bunch of characters like Itachi from Naruto, Alan Gabriel in the Big O, Albedo in Xenosaga. Like this guy has been around. Actually, he's actually one of the English dub guys in Judgment. Like the Yakuza, the in-universe Yakuza game for PS4.
Oh
That game
yeah.
actually has a dub, and
Cool.
so Crispin Freeman is, I believe, I forgot who the main character is, and I forgot who the best friend is, but I want to say Crispin Freeman's the best friend, Kaito.
Hmm.
And the main character is Steve Bloom. So like those are two top tier voice actors there. So that's some good stuff.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody else, but I think I got quite a few there. I mean, I probably
Yeah,
met some sports people that didn't mean much to me, but were probably historically significant. But I used to go to like baseball card shows with my brother when I was a kid, so we used to get things signed all the time.
sure.
Um,
I mean, like school filmer asked, "Have you seen or met any?" So,
yeah.
we saw gorillas in concert. There we go.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm gonna
It's a
rattle off
concert
all
that
the
doesn't really
concerts I've
count,
been
but yeah,
to, come on.
yeah,
Uh,
I know.
But yeah, I had some cool autograph stuff happen, and those are like all the major ones I would say. Just like mostly like video game celebs, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, pretty much stuff like that. Yeah, I don't like. I haven't met a bunch of movie stars or anything like that.
yeah, I mean, uh, the only movie star I mentioned, and she was from
Yes,
a while back. So, but yeah, I'm super happy to have done that. That was pretty cool. Um, and I think we could wrap things up with that.
sure.
So that is the show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. I just also want to thank our fans who contributed questions and comments this week. You can keep us supplied with awesome topics of your own by submitting questions of your own on the YouTube page there as well. And it helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays for our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on pretty much everything.
And you can follow me and my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/Lotus Prince.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you again for another episode of Reactive on Tuesday. See you then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.